Hi, and welcome back to When They Grow Older. I'm your host, Sue Tschepik. Today's episode is called Moving Forward. I think we can all agree that moving from your home at any age is stressful, but in the aging population, it can be especially challenging. Whether it's moving across town or across the country, or downsizing from a large home to a smaller home, maybe moving to a townhouse, an apartment, an assisted living, or memory care, it can be an overwhelming process, especially if it is not planned for ahead of time and you don't have the right resources in place. After all, anyone that's been through this process can tell you that it's a daunting experience, especially if your loved one has lived in the same place for many years, raised their children there, and had a spouse pass away while they're in the home and not really on board with moving out of their home. Having to wade through the many years of memories in their home to prepare them for the move can bring up good memories along with the bad, so leaving home can often be bittersweet. Tackling the decluttering, getting the home ready for sale, and the myriad of other tasks is a major undertaking if they're in good health, mentally and physically, and able to help with the process. But add on to this a crisis that forces the move to occur suddenly, or the unexpected death of a spouse, and you'll find yourself scrambling on how to help them get through this process without losing your own sanity. And that's why I have a very special guest today who is going to help us understand and move forward in this process. Her name is Sue Tschepik. She's a real estate expert, but she's also had extra training to assist helping clients over the age of 50 and their families when they need to buy or sell a house. She is known as a seniors real estate specialist. In other words, she's trained to understand the needs and the issues for seniors that are unique to this age group. So welcome, Sue Tschepik.
Thank you so much, Sue. I'm so happy to be here to talk with you today.
So let's just dive right into this. So what are the benefits of using a seniors real estate expert versus just a regular run-of-the-mill realtor?
Well, as you can imagine, seniors have their own array of issues and concerns, and they deal with things a little bit differently than maybe the average consumer. So, a seniors real estate specialist has been trained to work with people who are looking at maybe their third act in life, and they have different concerns and a different outlook than everybody else. So, seniors real estate specialist is trained, and they have a whole litany of resources available to them that are specifically designed for the older population.
And I would imagine a lot of times it's not only your client you're dealing with, but their whole family, right?
Of course, sometimes the call comes from the daughter or the son, and they said, mom or dad has passed away. The other remaining parent doesn't want to leave the home, but they really need to, or they're overwhelmed with all of the things they need to do. We don't even know where to begin. Can you please help us?
We're lucky enough to have you in the area that I live in. But if I'm listening to this podcast and trying to figure out how I would find someone with your training, how would I go about doing that?
You can go to the SRES website and you can search on there. You can search your area to find out who is certified and reliable in that area. And they'll probably give you a good list and you can interview them or your family can interview them.
And I think when you and I are talking about this episode, you also mentioned too that because you're trained in helping senior citizens, you have relationships with long-term care facilities or senior living facilities that you could help that process on both ends.
Sure. So in our area in particular, there are a number of senior communities where people can choose to go, and they're all different. If it's a very independent living style, they're just looking to kind of scale down, that's one thing. And some of them are progressive. Some of them have independent and then interdependent and then dependent living. They might have an Alzheimer's wing. They might have a hospice wing. So the one that I work with is Chandler Hall Health Services in Newtown, and they have all of those levels of care.
And that would be really helpful because I think a lot of families are overwhelmed just with the process of having that conversation of even getting mom or dad or Aunt Mary or Uncle Joe to move out of the house. And they're kind of thinking about, okay, we'll just get them to the next place. But as we age, if you're in your 70s or 80s, you certainly don't want to be moving into, a townhouse with 50 steps that maybe in the next year or so, you're going to be looking to moving out again. Or maybe the family isn't really recognizing that Uncle Joe might not do well in an apartment by himself. So having someone with your expertise would definitely be a plus to that whole moving experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And you really do need to do an assessment. When I meet with people, whether it be the homeowner themselves or the family or both, we try to determine what the goal is. Is it just they need something smaller and mom's really, she's young on the younger side and she's okay with a certain living situation? Or is it mom and dad and one of them has a memory disorder, but the other one doesn't? And where can they go to be together? And there's all these different levels of concern. And so you need to be able to differentiate between what they need, what they want, and what really should be available to them.
Right. So you're not just looking at someone that's coming into the house, looking to sell the house, and then just drop you off and hope, that next step, you've figured all that out. So
Correct.
that's really amazing. And how, is this a senior real estate specialist a new certification, or is this been around for a while?
It's been around for a number of years, but you have to really want to do it. It takes, it's 2 days of training, but it really takes quite a bit of on the job expertise, and you have to get your arsenal together. I have experts in elder services, elder attorneys, and tax folks, and movers, and packers, and CPAs, and contractors in case we need to do repairs. And so I need people that understand what it is I need them to do with regard to that particular client. So it takes you a while to kind of combine all those resources together.
Right. So once a family started thinking about the move, that's the time to reach out to you, right? Not before the
Correct.
crisis happens where mom or dad has unfortunately had a deterioration in their health, and now we're in panic mode because everything then is going to be so much more stressful.
When you're in panic mode, you tend to make decisions less properly than you should, and it can often mean less money in the pocket of the person or the family. If you prepare, it allows you time to think and move at the right pace so that things happen the way that they should, and generally it ends up to be a better outcome.
Exactly. I mean, you read a lot about the regret, not enough time to prepare. Mom suddenly moved into somewhere and the family thinks they're doing the right thing, and now everybody's full of regret and remorse. So hence why this topic is so important. And I mean, I think it would be, as we all age, you would think to yourself, oh, when I get to that point where I can't move around as well, or maybe I'm stuck on the first floor of my house and I'm pretty isolated in my home because I can't manage to get outside and I'm having difficulty managing the property, that you would say to yourself, it's time to move. But that is rarely the case, I would think, as we deal with the aging population. So it really takes that whole family to be involved and to help out. And or if mom or dad, like you say, maybe mom's dealing with her husband who's not aging as well, and this is the first time in their relationship where she really has to kind of step up to the plate and be the one to make those major decisions. So to have someone that's trustworthy and has their best interest in place would really make a lot of sense. So I think what
Right.
you do is really such a great service that people really should know a lot more about. So
Thank you. It's like I'm the traffic cop, right? I've learned a lot about taxes and legal things and all of the different resources that I use, but I'm not an expert in those areas. I literally guide you to those folks who can really assess what you need at every level. So as a traffic cop, I'm there to make sure you go the right direction at the right time while I do my job in the background.
exactly. And I think some patients, well, I deal, with patients in skilled rehab. So for the most part, I'm dealing with families who are in crisis mode. Maybe
Mhm.
they have thought about it before, maybe they haven't. And now mom can't go home and they're thinking, what am I going to do with the house? What am I going to do with all this stuff? Oh, we should go in and rip out the bathrooms and redo everything. And it's like, slow down, slow down. So to be able to say to them, here's an expert in real estate that can help you. What has to be done, what's nice, what's necessary, and what isn't necessary.
Right.
So yeah, definitely a good resource to have. As we alluded to, plan versus unplanned. So in a perfect world, we would all say, hey, I'm ready to move on and I've picked this perfect location to go to and I need your help. But that doesn't happen for the most part. But we're going to try to educate people who have aging loved ones to start thinking about that process and how to take, bite-sized chunks to make it more palatable to everybody involved. So say if I've had conversations with my mom and she's ready to downsize that big 2-story home and she's looking at moving into an assisted living, how soon should I reach out to someone like you to get that process started?
Well, when you're going into an assisted living, you're often on a waiting list. So probably your first step, if that is your end goal, is figure out where you want to go and what levels of care they have available should you need to progress through the system, and then get on the list. I just had a gentleman who was on a list for such a place for about 3 years.
Wow.
And then one day he came up to me and said, okay, I'm ready. They're ready for me. And so we then got to work, and we had about 90 days at that time. That's probably plenty of time, unless you have a hoarding situation, which you'd be surprised how often that is a thing, or not even hoarding, but the kids were nice enough to let mom and dad store all of their lifelong belongings, along with mom and dad's stuff.
Yeah. Well, so I often have people say to me, I'm not a hoarder. I just like to collect things. And I'm like,
yes. Oh, yeah.
You're a hoarder.
When we go, a lot of times I'll go in and I'll say, okay, we're going to call the kids and we're going to tell them they have until, 2 weeks from today to come get their stuff, or you need to donate it because I need to clear out this room. So I'm okay being the bad guy. And often the kids don't have a clue that it's a problem for mom and dad because they have the big house. Right. So really it's a matter of wrapping your arms around the whole family, getting everybody on board and begin the process. Initially, it's decluttering. That's the big first step.
Right. Exactly. And, I'm sure you have lots of tips on that. I've read all the articles on how, to start out with the room that's least special to them, move their way up. And sometimes I think too, like if the kids don't want to take something, but it seems really important to mom, then somebody should just take it, hold on to it for a couple months. Once right. She's moved into a new place, so she doesn't want it anymore, and just don't talk about it, So there's obviously a lot of tips to that I'm sure can be helpful. And I've often found too that even if you have like 4 or 5 children, there's only one child that kind of steps up to the plate to be the lead person.
Yep.
And then the other people can be assigned mini tasks, but there's usually that one person that's the power of attorney, or hopefully the power of attorney. So maybe you can even speak to that about how important it is to have that kind of paperwork in place for a move.
Absolutely. I just did actually a video on my website about that, because oftentimes parents will appoint a power of attorney, but if they have 2 children, 3 children, 4 children, I've had parents put them all equally in the same seat. That does not work. We need one captain of the ship.
Right.
So I do guide them with that, and I will send them to an elder care attorney who can help guide them through that process. But it's critical because when I come into the scene, I need to know who my point person is. Who do I call when I need to talk to them about the things that are happening in the house or not happening in the house, or help guide them? And if it has to be a committee of 2 or 3 or 4 people, we never get anything done.
Right. So you're part psychologist and part,
yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, big part, definitely. Actually. It's a very large part.
Yes. And I'm sure, there's all those tricks of the trade. Do you rent a storage unit? Do you not rent a storage unit? And all that can be helped through by someone like you as a specialist who kind of gets a feel for the situation and, how much progress can be made in that period of time and what's going to have to be like pushed aside to the other,
right.
when someone's ready to go through that and really look at it, along with repairs. So just having trustworthy people to do repairs, because that is a really scary thing in the senior population. Scams, people hiring someone to redo a bathroom and getting scammed, and now they need to move out of their house. The bathroom's gutted, not fixed. They're scrambling what to do. So obviously someone with all your resources can help guide them to the right people to help get things done without losing more time, money, or.
Right. Well, that's an important reason, because I'll come in sometimes and there's quite a bit of deferred maintenance. What happens as we age is we don't necessarily notice things, or maybe we don't have the money to take care of them, or, your husband used to do these things and now he's not able to, and the kids move far away. So I can come in and assess and say, okay, this is important. This is not important. And
Yeah.
that's really the trick of this entire thing, because people are overwhelmed with all of it.
Hmm.
And so they become paralyzed and they do nothing. So
Yes.
just like if you picture yourself, if you need to clean your house, you have to start somewhere. So I'll tell my seniors, if you need to start this process, pick a closet, clean one closet
Right.
and make
And
it
not
look.
all in a day and not in a
No,
week, right? Because it's been
no,
30 years of stuff.
no,
And I
you're
think,
looking to see what works for you and what doesn't
yeah,
work for you because your life has changed.
and I think we all have such an emotional attachment to that place we live, whether it's your apartment, your townhouse, whatever that is. So you may think that, what you've done for your house is this is the best. And other people walk in and go like, can't wait to rip that wallpaper off. So you need that third party to kind
Mhm.
of rein you in and say, hey, listen, what was special to you and here and personal to you doesn't matter to the person coming in the door. Just need to
Correct.
get this done and move on to the next step. So,
Correct.
um, and then we had touched base on where is the appropriate place for them to move on to next. And I think that is really so key to helping people with that next step. And even as far as the cost of it, being mindful of what that next step, what that's going to cost for them, the taxes involved, the HOA fees, all those little things that they really need to consider before saying that's where I want to go, because it looks like a shiny, spanky new 55 and up community, but yet I'm already wheelchair bound with a lot of disabilities. So having someone that can kind of talk common sense to them is helpful.
Right. Because some of these places really have a very large upfront fee, six-figure fee that you pay. There's a benefit to that because it's your bank account there. Some of them you get money back if the parent moves out. Some of them you don't. Some of them have monthly rent. So, some of them you have to pay extra for different healthcare levels. So you really do need to go to each of these places and visit and see what they offer and what it's going to cost you. But the other side is many of our seniors simply move to a smaller property. They'll get a single level home. They'll get a home without stairs. That's maybe a condo. And maybe that's the right move for them. Sometimes they move into an auxiliary building on their kids' property. They've converted a barn into a really nice cottage. So there's lots of different options for seniors, and that's part of the process. My job is to help with that as much as I can, but really, I'm the front end guy. I'm going to get you out of where we are in the proper manner with all of the resources that I have so you can make those decisions without worrying about what's happening on the back end.
Sounds like a perfect plan. I'm ready to move tomorrow.
I'll be over at 3:30.
Then, so backtrack a little bit. Everybody wants to hold on to all this furniture and stuff that they have.
Oh, yes, they do.
So how do we help them recognize, what that new place is looking like and what's really reasonable to take with them so they're not spending gazillions on moving expenses and then finding out it doesn't fit or they may not like it.
Yeah, well, first of all, everybody should measure wherever they're going and make sure they understand what pieces they need. A couch, a chair, table, and a kitchen table. That's usually your whole shebang in the living area. The other thing our seniors need to recognize, unfortunately, is our children do not want anything we own. And they want to give the kids everything. And then the other side of it is that I'm going to sell it on Facebook Marketplace or eBay. Nobody's buying this stuff anymore. The times have changed.
Yes.
The younger generations are more transitory. So I do help them kind of navigate through that both emotionally and fiscally. I have folks that'll come out and they'll assess things. If there's things of value, they'll try to sell them, but they'll tell them flat out, I can take this for you and I will donate it for you, but there's no money in it. So there's all these different levels of that. But our seniors really need to determine what their life is going to look like at their new location. Is it one room with one bedroom and no outdoor space? Well, then you don't need your patio furniture.
Right.
Things of that nature.
Right. And I think sometimes people will say like, well, the person buying my house is probably going to want all my stuff. So they'll
Every day.
I'll just leave it here. And we all know, like you're saying, especially younger generation, they're not even using dining rooms anymore, and your old china hutches and all that. So
Yep.
that the sooner probably you can tackle that with your loved one too, the better. Because
Right.
if you're waiting till the end, the emotionality of them now leaving that place that they raised their children and loved all their neighbors and had such great memories, they're having to leave and also get rid of things, like you say, in a rush, which leads to a lot of regret. And then it can lead to, years of emotional distress down the road, like, oh, I should have, would have, could have. And so again, it's that planning, it's that timing, it's that pacing yourself to say, hey, this is what we're doing this week, this is what we're doing next week, and have a plan in place.
Right. And it can take, depending upon the person, it can take 6 months. Some people are very good in 30 days. I had one guy that shocked me every time I went over there. He was like, bing, bang, boom, and everything was done. But that is not the average bear.
Right.
So it really, again, a part of my job is to assess who I'm talking to and how I feel they can maneuver through this process in a way that won't stress them, because it's stressful enough as it is.
Right. Especially if they're suffering from a cognitive decline. That's
Correct.
new for them. Change can really be stressful. And so on the back end, then, families have to realize that now that they've plopped mom into this new setting, it doesn't end there. They still need to support and, continue on with supporting her through that process.
Yep.
So I would guess, this is a huge chunk of information that we have given here, and we probably could really do a follow-up on it. Hopefully you will come back at another time and we can deeper dive into a lot of the topics that we've touched on. I think it would be really great if you would let people know, like, we're in the Bucks County, Pennsylvania area. So if you live in this area and you're listening to this podcast, how would they reach out to you, Sue?
Sure. I'm Sue Thomas with Keller Williams Real Estate. I have offices in Doylestown and New Hope. You can go to my website, callsuethomas.com. You can email me, suethomas@kw.com, or you can call me directly, 215-622-3035, and I would be happy to talk with you about this process and come and assess how I can help you. And I have referral partners in every state, and they're all SRES certified. So they do what I do where anyone lives. So I don't want anyone to feel like they're left out in the cold just because they're not in Bucks or Montgomery counties. I can help them whether it's in Nevada, Florida, New York, California, wherever.
Well, this might be one of the most challenging experiences that we all face with our aging loved ones. But obviously, if we plan ahead, we have the right people in place as a resource that we can turn to when a crisis occurs. We can all survive it while maintaining our sanity.
Yep.
So thanks for tuning in today to When They Grow Older, and we'll talk to you soon.